What's up, everyone? It's Paul here. I got another perspective for you. So it's really weird to see MSNBC be favorable to Bernie, but on Morning Joe, they had a Financial Times columnist to do just that. Have a quick look.
Well, Bernie's, if you think about it, it's just 10 weeks ago he had a heart attack and had 2 stents put in. That actually marked the nadir of his fortunes. His polls have been rising since then pretty steadily, at the expense mostly of Elizabeth Warren, to the point where 3 weeks before Iowa and New Hampshire, some polls show him as marginally winning both those races, some polls. So I guess it's, the sort of granite hardness of his base is just something we should never underestimate.
Yeah, so those are a lot of things that we said you shouldn't underestimate Sanders for. He has an extremely strong base. His poll numbers have been going up since he had heart stents put in. It's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, that's his first major heart event at that age, and the stents are the kind of thing that seem to give people a lot of energy they didn't know they had. And so that's something that I think has been seen along the trail. He's going to go into Elizabeth Warren a little bit here, and I think what he has to say is very similar to what we've been saying also.
We shouldn't underestimate just how tone-deaf Elizabeth Warren can sometimes be on the stump. She's great at policy, but her political touch is not as good as you might think it would be. And I think this latest leak from somebody close to the Warren campaign, fairly ill-disguised fingerprints there from the Warren campaign that Bernie told her 13 months ago a woman couldn't win, is an example of that. It's clearly quite close to closing bell, 3 weeks to go. A fairly nefarious account of a conversation that no aides were present at. Just 2 of them, Warren and Sanders in the room, comes out at this time, and then she issues a statement saying, let's move on. I think that's the kind of thing that probably could end up even benefiting Bernie Sanders, because he's seen as the Mr. Authenticity, Mr. Integrity. Many faults, but those are seen as virtues. And I think that partly explains why this extraordinary story, this 78-year-old with 2 stents, could be winning the first 2 contests in the 2020 Democratic primaries.
So yeah, I think that's the correct take on that. It's really weird to see MSNBC basically admit that that appears to have been a political stunt orchestrated by Warren or someone close to the Warren campaign. That's not something we've seen readily admitted, certainly by CNN or others. But also to very accurately call out that it is going to help Bernie, and that it is helping Bernie, and that he's likely going to do very well, if not win, Iowa and New Hampshire. He doesn't extrapolate further from there, but that's huge. If Bernie wins Iowa and New Hampshire, I mean, he's pretty much got a lock on Nevada, and then it's just a question of how strong is Joe Biden's firewall in South Carolina. Ultimately, I think things look really, really good for Bernie Sanders, and it's weird to see that reflected on MSNBC, particularly on Morning Joe. That said, I think that they could have gone further. He sort of hyper-focuses on the fact that he's done well since the stents and the fact that the Elizabeth Warren attacks are not working and he's pulling from Warren voters. I think there is some open question as to how much he's pulling from Buttigieg supporters and from Biden supporters. And I think from people lower on the ballot as well, I think are going to Bernie. So I think we're going to see a pretty good performance from Bernie this time around. And I'm just having to wrap my head around hearing that come from people I generally don't believe anything they have to say. It's just weird to see my own calculus being reflected in mainstream news. So if you're experiencing the same kind of, I don't know what you would even call it, just kind of cloud brain, like what's happening right now? Is this real? What's happening? You're not alone. Peace, everyone.